G'day, John for Thehotend. We've been sent the Anycubic 4Max Pro. This is the first video in a set of two to show you the Anycubic 4Max Pro. Now there's a lot to get in, that's why we're doing two videos. The first one is the review of the machine straight out of the box. And the second video will have some detailed instructions on how to deal with its little idiosyncrasies. But rest assured that this printer, straight out of the box, printed fine. It's an excellent printer. It's very solid, has a steel frame underneath the plastic skin. It is a cantilever designed bed, which means that the Z lead screw and the two support rods are at the back, and there's nothing supporting the bed at the front. The two supporting rods are huge and have good long bearings that ride on those rods, so it's very, very stable. Similar system to other extremely expensive printers. It's a single extruder printer, and it is not a Bowden system. It is a direct extruder system, which means it rides along with the X and Y axis. It's almost a Core XY design, but not quite. It's very quiet. It has excellent stepper drivers for the X and Y axis, which means they are beautifully quiet. However, the Z is just a normal driver, or a less expensive driver, if you like. And the Z can be a little more noisy, which is okay, except if you use a Z lift on your print, which means you have to put up with the Z going all the time it's doing its lift. It's not overly loud, but it can get annoying. All in all, this printer prints very, very well. Having said that, there were a few things that I had to do to this machine to get it to print excellently. And you'll see that in part 2 of these videos. But straight out of the box, you have to do nothing to it except hang the spool holder on the back and insert the filament runout sensor. Other than that, it's ready to go. It has excellent instructions in the instruction booklet, which is here. Very, very detailed instructions. Where are we? There. Even when it comes to unpacking. I really like this printer, and that's because I'm a big ABS fan. And this printer is fully enclosed. There's a top that goes on it as well, and it prints ABS nicely, and I'm really happy about that. It actually does what the advertising says, which is it will print all filaments. The only one I haven't tried so far is Flex, but the way the hot end and extruder are set up, I'm sure it will do that as well. Okay, this is the top of the printer looking down, and this is the huge unit that holds the extruder and hot end and the two fans. It's quite a large unit, which I'm not all that keen about because it makes it very hard to see. If you're printing something small, you can't actually see it on the bed. But you have the two fans, one's your print cooling fan, one's your hot end fan. There's a little PCB up there that keeps all the wiring nice and tidy. And in the fix video, you'll see how I can take all that apart. This is just a bit of a peep underneath. I took the bottom off so that you can see the wiring underneath. Again, with a couple of PCBs. The wiring for the mains voltage looked nice and tidy. Certainly heavy enough to carry the currents. It's a 12-volt system rather than 24, but seems adequate. If you're printing ABS, the heated bed takes around about 10 minutes to get up to 100 degrees, which is, it's not fast, but it's acceptable. And down here you'll see, as I showed earlier, the X and Y drivers, and the green one above it is the Z, and then the extruder. And you might notice while you're looking at this, those blobs on the plugs there. They put some, it looks like hot glue on the plugs to stop them coming unplugged. Apparently someone had an issue that the printer was dead on arrival and it was just one of the plugs had come undone. This is the print of the SD card preset model. There's two versions of this on the SD card. There's a STL version and a pre-sliced version. This is the pre-sliced version. It's printing in the PLA that came with it, which was a very generous amount of PLA, I must say. Looks like about half a spool, I'd say, so about 500 grams of PLA. And you'll see between the two owls some stringing, which should have started ringing alarm bells, but it didn't at this stage. And again, just looking down on the top. There was a great bag of tools and spares that came with this printer. There were spare limit switches and all sorts of things, as well as a complete spare hot end. Now we're just going to go through some of the prints that I managed to do, and they are labelled, you'll see that on there. Now, I did have an issue with this particular printer. Now, whether they've fixed the issue on subsequent printers or whether it was just the printer that I have, I'm not sure, and I'm still waiting for Anycubic to get back to me. Now, as we go through these prints, you'll see, before the temperature issues were detected. So what I found was the printer was printing everything way too hot. Now, I don't know if you've ever tried to measure the temperature of a hot end, but you need a proper thermocouple thermometer to measure the hot end temperature. You can't just use an IR thermometer. And I didn't have one at this stage, but I hadn't really considered that there was that much of a problem. So I started allowing for the extra heat that was obvious. So as you can see, this one was printed at 170, it might have even been 165 according to the printer, but it was actually printing much warmer than that. And as we get into some of the other filaments, you'll see where the problem started to raise its head. Okay, we're now into ABS. ABS prints normally hotter than PLA, of course. My normal ABS temperature setting is around the 235, 240 degrees. And with this printer, I had to allow for the temperature difference to get a reasonable print in ABS. This one isn't too bad, but could certainly be better. Again, we're printing in ABS. Now at this point, oh, there's my thumb sticking up there. I haven't motorized my turntable yet. At this stage, the printer was starting to have serious clogging issues. And that's because I was also doing some prints in PETG, which the PETG I have has to be printed at around the 240, 245 degrees. Now, the hot end on this machine has a PTFE tube which goes all the way down to the nozzle. Now, when we get into the PETG models, which I think will be coming up shortly, we have another ABS. But yeah, clogging was becoming a problem. I had the hot end extruder assembly apart more times than I can remember, probably at least 20 times, to fix clog issues, until the light came on and I figured what was actually wrong. When I was printing PETG, as I said, it prints hotter. And before I realised what was going on, I was printing PETG at the same temperatures as I would normally print. This one is an example. It was, as I say, still too hot. And not knowing what the problem was, you tend to play around with temperatures while it's printing, going hotter and colder and what have you. And at one stage, I actually, by the machine settings, had the hot end up to around 255. I think it goes to 260 from memory, but I had it at 255 to try and get a reasonable print without clogs. Now, again, this one is one that I printed allowing for the temperature difference, but you'll see on the back it had clogging issues. So the guts of the matter is, because I had the printer set at 255, the printer was actually, after I got myself a thermocouple thermometer, it was printing a little over 20 degrees hotter than it should have been. So when I was printing at 255, the printer was actually printing at 275 or a bit more. And if you've ever seen what happens to PTFE tubing at those sort of temperatures, it's pretty obvious what was causing the clog problems. The PTFE tubing basically disintegrated in the hot end, so I changed it to the replacement hot end and had the same problem. And as I said, after many, many experiments, thinking of all sorts of other things that it could have been, I found out that it was the temperature destroying the PTFE. There's my thumb again. So in the part 2 of this 2 video series, I will show you how I went about fixing this problem and was able to come up with prints that were pretty close to perfect. And there's one coming up. Okay, this is after I've identified the issues on the printer and fixed them. And as it says, this was printed in ABS. Now, this particular ABS I've had laying around for probably 5 years. And it was printed at a 0.16 layer height, sliced in Simplify 3D. Now, this print is pretty much perfect. I have a very expensive printer here that I won't name, that we're talking 20 times the price of this printer, and it's not that much better than this. Now, at the time of filming this, the Anycubic 4Max Pro is on flash sale for $299 US. And to get results like this on a printer that costs $299, taking into account the issue that I had to fix, it's pretty damn good. I would recommend this printer until the cows come home. I don't know if that's an expression you guys are used to. We certainly are here. It is absolutely great for printing ABS, PETG, PLA, and I'm about to start testing on Flex It has a completely sealed filament path, so flex shouldn't be a problem on this printer either. This is the Moon City 2.0 model, and it's, apart from a little bit of overhang on the very top, it just came out, well, as close to perfect as you can get on an FDM printer. All right, that's all for this part of the video. Stay tuned for part 2, where I will explain how to pull everything apart and how to fix the issues that I came across. Don't forget to subscribe.